Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. We're glad that you are here with us this week. Hi, Matt.
Hey there.
It is so nice to see you again.
Yeah, I thought you guys forgot what I look like.
It's been a minute.
Yeah,
It's been a minute,
while.
but hey, glad you're here
Yeah, thank you.
to have this discussion. Glad you guys are with us today, grabbing your cup of coffee or on your walk or driving to work or using this to fall asleep at night,
Hey,
whatever it is.
I have to add my point. Coffee? No, come on. There's tea drinkers out here.
Oh,
I didn't have my tea.
You're drinking water.
Well, it's because I drank my tea and I forgot to make another
Hey,
cup. But
don't worry. I drank my coffee too, but I'm still drinking.
yeah, you got another one.
I'm
Yeah,
still.
I'm
That's
kinda-
cup number 4
I'm
for
ready
the day.
for another cup. Oh,
Yeah.
cup number 4.
Cup number 4 for
Michael's
the day.
gonna be a little jittery. That's okay. Just overlook that.
It's all right. It's okay. Nothing new. Nothing different. Glad you're here. Like we've said, just continuing the conversation from Sunday. We're getting through. I think we just through the book of James slowly over the last few weeks. So
I love this book, by the way.
it's a good one.
There's
You love it and you hate it at the same time.
I was gonna say it also is a slap in the face. Like every page, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got that. No, I don't.
Exactly.
Gotta work on that, baby.
Yeah. It's lots
But
of good
Scripture
reminders.
be worthwhile if it didn't.
Right. I mean, it should.
Someone
Convict.
said,
Yeah.
if I'm preaching a sermon and I don't adequately offend someone today, probably I'm not preaching what I should be preaching.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's probably.
Yeah. And do you ever find like when you preach a sermon, you adequately offend yourself?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh my goodness. Yeah. This like the sermon's for you, and maybe the people might get something out of it, but
Right. But most of the time it's
your
free.
audience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
James
That's
is
good.
that. That's this thing.
James is a good one. It's always a good if you're like, hey, if you're struggling, maybe like in Bible study, like, hey, what do I need to read just to be reminded? James is always a good one. Points to just God's character, our conduct, and how we should be more like Jesus, and kind of opens our eyes sometimes to those things that we overlook, I think.
And James 2, literally.
Yeah.
It's mostly, I think, when I don't know why I'm all of a sudden having this problem, but
It's okay.
anyway, when I think of James 2 specifically, I think, that's probably someone else. That's probably
Right.
not me.
Yeah.
That's not. And then I think through, well, wait, is there somehow when I go in there without thinking about it? That's the problem. This is one of those things where you could easily approach, in this case, church service is kind of what it was, kind of like church gathering, and easily think that's those guys. That's what they're doing instead of that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you read it and you're like, oh, I need to tell so-and-so to read this part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But first, I got to take that log out of my eye.
Exactly.
As Jesus tells
Yeah,
us. But
absolutely. Absolutely. And this one, this part of James 2 this week was actually really good for us, I think, as a church, as a reminder of who it is how we should not favor other people or favor certain groups of people. So I thought Jerry did a good job walking us through that and reminding us not to play favorites. What is is there like a movie or something where somebody says, "Can't we all just get along?" I was thinking about that
I'm
this
sure there's
morning.
a couple,
I know it's a quote from something. If you guys can remember what that is, let me know.
Too bad you couldn't text us.
Because I do not remember
live.
Yeah. So this week was just all about being able to value people the way that God values people and see them that way. So our hearts really begin to resemble God's heart and his character and the way he loves and welcomes and accepts people, because we all need his grace.
Right.
We all need his mercy. So we need to welcome people with that same mindset. So what do you think, Matt?
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah,
You can
before
interrupt
jump
me.
in,
You don't have to
let's-
wait for me to stop because I'll
like
talk
interrupting, but-
forever.
Well, I thought of I was thinking, imagining how would we, like, if you've already heard the sermon, maybe
Right.
what we're going to say doesn't mean a lot, considering it may have been stated, but maybe there's some things that we could think about just on what the text says. So I thought of some questions that I would start off thinking or asking, just to get people to think about, hey, this is because we're going to read the verses. We talked about that. And
If you brought them,
I
or
brought
can
the
pull
verses.
them
They're
up
right
on
in
your
front
phone.
of me.
Okay.
I could have.
I laid my phone. I laid my phone down. So
Yeah, and I have that as well. You can use my phone if you want. So here's a question that I asked just to make me think deeper and maybe even to get us thinking deeper. But it says, if James means that Christians must never judge anyone. Why does James judge this congregation's conduct and call it evil and sinful? In other words, what we're thinking, it's calling us out on showing favoritism, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's already saying that we're doing something. But sometimes I think you can get the impression that we're not supposed to judge anyone in the church, or we're not supposed to have any. And the word judge is probably not the best English word to say. It is
Correct.
actually accurate,
Right.
But I think discern.
Yeah.
So sometimes I need to discern my behavior or your behavior. Maybe I shouldn't follow what you're doing. So I have
Right.
to discern, is that right or wrong? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one question, but here, it will dig us through. You'll see where I'm going with
Okay.
this. It says,
All right.
were they wrong because they recognize one man as rich and another as poor? Or because they used that difference to decide each man's worth and treatment? So I didn't say that real well, but
Yeah, I think that like the recognition of differences is normal for us and is okay. But it's whenever we allow those differences to affect the way we treat people.
yeah, it's saying, hey, eventually it says, love your neighbor as yourself,
Yeah.
right? Well, loving my neighbor as myself means I don't make a distinction between you and someone else. I
Right.
look at you with the mercy and love that God is wanting us to have, loving our neighbor. I can't love my neighbor and not be merciful.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you can reconcile that if you could, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we the culture that we live in teaches us to value people based on their resume.
right.
We look at a
certainly
piece of paper before we look at a person.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of people who go look for jobs and stuff, and you really can't gauge a person's heart by a piece of paper or a list of
Right.
accolades and things like that. And that's kind of the way that I looked at it, was like, there's a lot of things on surface level we can take away from welcoming someone, or someone who comes in who's different than us, or somebody that we don't know. There's lots of things that we can take away and think about them, but without really we have to know their heart. We have to get to know them and who they are, and value them the way that God does,
Right.
and accept them regardless of the differences.
Well, and here's what it's also not saying. It's not saying that a poor person, because that's actually the contrast here, the rich and poor.
Right.
A poor person actually has something of value either. It's not saying that. It's saying don't show favoritism to the one who, in this case, is rich, and say that honoring what they are about
Yeah.
is better than the person that's poor. So it's not also saying the poor person needs to be elevated per se.
Right.
It's just saying, look, be fair and look at if you love your neighbor, you wouldn't treat the wealthier person better than the person that's poor because they're not clean enough, or, their clothes don't look great, or whatever. They can't participate in certain things because they would need money to do that, or something like that. Or
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not about what you can bring, I guess. Whenever I'm thinking in context of like when people come into church, we shouldn't just automatically say, okay, what's that person going to be able to do?
Sure.
What are they going to be able to give? How are they going to be able to serve in a way that meets a need that we have? That shouldn't be our first thought. It should be like, how can we help this person experience Jesus? Not what can we get from them, but what can we give to them, and how can we help them grow and walk and become a better disciple
Right.
of Christ?
And so here's another question that leads right into what you're
Yeah.
saying. It says, did this church fail to show hospitality to everyone, or did it show excellent hospitality only to the person it considered valuable?
Did they fail to show hospitality to everybody? I don't know that I would say that it would be necessarily a failure of showing it,
Well,
right?
They didn't show it to the wealthy person,
Yeah.
the rich person. They didn't show it to them. They showed it to the others. So it's not really getting about that they failed.
Right.
It's how they did it, like who they were pointing it to someone and away from someone else, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's getting, and so that word favoritism is important, and as far as understanding, because I think it's central to this whole passage of basically, I care more for this person and not this person. It's what you're essentially getting at. I mean, at least that's how I'm taking the text. I get it wrong sometimes, but
Right. No, I understand that for sure. It's easy for us to sadly, it's easy for us to play favorites sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, we all have our groups of people that we hang out with and cling to and navigate towards. And I think that that's fine. And I think that that's healthy to have people, but it's whenever you begin to exclude everybody else that it becomes a heart issue, I think.
Good question, Mark. When I walk in service, do I immediately think of who I'm going to see there that, that's important to me, which is important to do, right?
Right, yeah.
Or am I going to recognize someone that may not be recognized? I think there's an element of that as well. Like it really is honing in on hospitality. How did they do?
Right.
Are they showing favoritism that obviously is then dishonoring the whole commandment? He said to love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not loving them when you ignore them, right?
Right.
I think that's the huge kind of overlooked point that I miss. I miss when I read that text. I just think of, I just should focus on the wealthy person, but he's not talking about the wealthy person. He's just saying that's the example.
Okay.
Do we do it? And you pointed that out. I think that was good.
Yeah.
So do you think we should read the text?
Go ahead and why don't you read that text,
And it's
Matt.
only because someone is going to show up here and they may not know it, but it's James 2. If you go to 1, wrong chapter, 2 verses 1 through 13. So, my brothers and sisters, do not show favoritism as you hold on to the faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ. For if someone comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and dressed in fine clothes, and a poor person dressed in filthy clothes also comes in, if you look with favor on the one wearing the fine clothes and say, sit here in a good place, and yet you say to the poor person, stand over there, or sit here on the floor by my footstool. Haven't you made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Well, listen, my dear brother, and there, by the way, that word judges, that word is discerning. It's probably more of a discerning comment. Like, in other words, God tells us we have to be discerning.
Right.
He's not telling us not to do that. Text is never saying that.
Right.
But it's so anyway, I'll keep going. Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, didn't God choose the poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him? Yet you have dishonored the poor. Don't the rich oppress you and drag you into court? Don't they blaspheme the good name that was invoked over you? Indeed, if you fulfill the royal law prescribed in the scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing well. However, you show favoritism. You commit sin and are convinced by the law as convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever keeps the entire law and yet stumbles at one point is guilty of breaking it all. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. So if you do not commit adultery, but you murder, you are a lawbreaker. And then, last 2 verses, speak and act as those who are to be judged by the law of freedom. For judgment is without mercy to the one who has not shown mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. And in this case, judgment is in saying that person's better than another.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is more the word judgment than discern in this case. But
Yeah. So one of the questions that I've asked myself the last few weeks with the sermons is, what is this message really teaching me about God's character and how I can better model it? And when I think about that, how is it that God revealed his character to us? Through Jesus, right? And Jesus went to the overlooked person. Jesus went to the children who weren't to be considered or brought in or close to him, the lost, the Samaritan woman where it wasn't culturally acceptable for him to speak to her, the leper that nobody would touch, the tax collector, the sinner. Those are the people that he pursued. So we too should be willing to do that. And I think that's a whole other tangent. Never mind, I'm not going to go that way. But I think that, we have to be willing to go after those people and not wait for them to come to us. And a lot of times, I think the hindrance for us is we don't go after them because they're not like us.
yeah, that's true. Or we want to go to people that make us feel comfortable. That's probably a better way to
that
word
person will be easy to talk to about this. Or that would be a great conversation to have. Or or I already have a relation, and those things are fine, and those things are good, I think, because like we have talked a lot in the past, it's easy to have those spiritual conversations with a person you know is going to accept that conversation and actually plant a seed with them. But it's harder when you don't know.
And here's the point I think he makes, and you actually said it, but you didn't use these words.
Yeah.
James does not abolish moral judgment. He condemns judging a person's worth and determining our treatment of that person by a sinful outward standard. So the outward standard is that, well, they're not like me, or, someone who's well off. I think in some subtle way we're thinking maybe I'll get a benefit if I make that person happy. The other one can't really benefit me more than just a conversation. Maybe that's going on.
Yeah.
A future business deal, I might not be able to have that with that person, or I don't know what you're thinking, but maybe they'll provide, if we're talking about a church, a larger offering. So they should have more say, any of these things. And that's sinful, right? God's not saying, look, you have a time. I've heard this in the sermon. You give your puny and your puny and your puny, and then that makes what we need. But so in this case, someone has a little bit and someone else has a lot. I mean, sadly, we tend to look at the world's way of looking at it. Well, they benefit me, therefore I honor that.
Yeah.
Right. And you're saying that, but you were using it in a context, not necessarily what this scripture is pointing out, but it's the overall thing is, hey guys, we need to go out and then look for, like what Jesus did, look for those people who are, I know the concept marginalized, but look for people who aren't noticed, who people would probably skip over. And why? Because they're judging them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're making that point.
So would you say, like, taking from this text, I think this is what I'm kind of hearing us both maybe say in a roundabout way, is like, as a church, sometimes we have a tendency to elevate people who we think are influential.
Oh, that's another, yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what you were like with the offering. This person could give more. This person has this business that could bring this. And we pay attention to that person and what they want and their needs more than we do the spiritual needs of people. Maybe we even pay more attention to that person than we do Jesus.
Yeah, that's right. If Jesus walked in, what would he have been?
Well, he wouldn't have been going to that person.
You're right, but think about it. Let's say Jesus came into the service. Which do you think Jesus would probably lean towards, the poor person or the rich person?
Yeah, not the rich.
So we would have overlooked Jesus in that sense.
Yeah, and how does that make you feel whenever you think about that? Like, we would, if Jesus walked into our church, we would overlook him probably.
I remember seeing some video or someone talk about how the preacher of the church or someone significant that people would know disguised himself as someone very poor.
Yeah,
and
I've
came
seen
in
those.
And, and then he talks about later how the church reacted. I don't know if he did it in that sermon but then they eventually start saying, "Hey, this is how it was, how I was treated." And it's like, wow, that's a hard message to hear when you think you're doing what's normal, but maybe what's normal needs to be checked. Check the scripture.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think? Like, if you had to pick a big takeaway, I'm just gonna veer from notes completely.
Yeah.
If you had to take like a big takeaway for you from the sermon when it comes to favoritism and how you treat people, whether that be out or here in church building, what was your biggest takeaway?
Well, when I'm looking at the passage, I realize that faith is connected. As Jesus, at the very beginning of it, it actually connects faith. Like when the faith that we have in Jesus and following him and doing it, it basically steers our reaction to people. Right. So if we're grounded in Jesus, we've surrendered to Jesus. Surrendering means that I'm going to do what pleases him before myself, which is, it's easier to say than do, right? Obviously, here is a good example. But I think there's a connection here because he's making connection. Faithful people actually, they love the Lord, but they see people differently. They stop seeing from the world's viewpoint.
Right.
And we've kind of hinted that. I would say that I think we need to stop and look at. I think that's the message I got. Like, I'm thinking of application right now.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
What do I take away from this? I take away that, man, I probably think I'm doing okay, and maybe I need to be introspective a little bit to say, wait a minute, what if someone else was looking at me? Would they see me as what I think I'm being seen as? Would they see me as that person showing favoritism? And maybe I need to say, God, I need to pray. Start off by saying, God, help me see those things I am not seeing in myself. And maybe even taking a friend that you really trust, someone that does not say yes all the time, and asking, hey, how do you see me? Someone from the church, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
But how do you see me? Do you think I'm, and hopefully it's a person that will be honest, and that could be a start, because recognize it means I know what to fix. But when you don't recognize it, you keep just moving on. Right.
Right.
So to me, that was, I was asking myself, where do I do that? It's easy to say, oh, this isn't talking about me. It's talking to all them. Right?
Right.
Especially if
we said
thinking
that
as a leader here in the church.
Yeah.
But you know what? I am so prone to doing that as well.
Oh,
To give attention, give someone's ear to someone that can give me something than to someone who couldn't, but yet needs to hear something or get, have something from me.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't have something if I walk away from you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reminded, because I'm the kind of person who, like, I want to be accepted. I want to be included. I want to, feel value. That's just who and I think everybody's that way to an extent. But that's I get my worth from that. Like, that's what fills my cup. I had a conversation with somebody about that last week. That's what fills my cup. But how often am I in? And this is my big downfall, is how often do I, in my pursuit of needing those things for myself, how often do I extend that to somebody else and recognize that that's a needed in other people too? And then I'm like, how did God welcome me? How does he value me? Oftentimes I put more weight on how people value me as opposed to how God does.
Right.
So it's for me, it was teaching myself personally. This is how you came to Christ. This is the mercy that he gave you. This is how he welcomed you into a relationship with him. Now you need to go do those same things and walk with people in the same way, so that they can know and experience that same relationship. So to me, that was a big thing. Don't not approach somebody because they're different, or because they're not the normal people you would be with, or because they don't really have anything to offer you. But approach everybody the same way.
You triggered something in my head. I went immediately to high school, or at least the way movies portray high school. And this is our table. Don't let them sit with us. Oh
yeah, like lunch table. Yeah,
lunch table kind of thing. That came to mind, and I thought, you know what? Sometimes, and usually the movie pivots eventually. I don't know if it does it right there. I can't remember how it would be set up, but they pivot and they said, maybe I need to get away from my friendship circle. Just see, to not behave the same way. Like, 'cause I know I've caught myself doing that. Doing what my friendship group would do, and then I later said, wait, this is not what God would want.
Yeah.
And then you have that struggle. I want to be with my friends, like you said, identity, and getting it from their approval and liking you and stuff like that. But sometimes I realize, for me, it's like I may need to walk away from that, at least for a time, at least enough to say, God, look, I think doing what you want has got to supersede what I want. And that, in that case, I've got to change this behavior in me, right? So sometimes that might be good, and sometimes it might be bad. Sometimes those friends could actually steer you to do the right thing. But if you're at the table where it says, hey, get away from us, maybe that this is the scripture for us for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Gosh, I don't even know where to go with this now. So I'm just going to put those down
totally
there. So
off script, and we didn't have a script actually.
We just have those notes jotted down for a second. So how do you think we can? How do you think we do as a church family with that kind of? I hate to use the word inclusion, but like how do you think we have an issue with this?
I think though, if an outsider is coming in, I hear this over and over. One of the very positive points that they seem to always say is, wow, it was friendly. People talked to me, and they came to me, they invited me or they did various things. And I think we have that. I would say though, and I've heard this also, and this is not you don't hear this right away, but eventually people said it was hard to get into that group or to become a part of it because maybe the friendliness ended and then it was like, I don't know, I don't want them to disrupt my group.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I fight that with my own small group. I have a small group, and it's like I want people to come in, but I also, in the back of my head, I don't want to probably say this out loud, but I'm like thinking, man, will this really hurt the dynamic of our group?
Well, I think that all small groups think that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say like for ours too. It's kind of the same way. It's like how's adding someone going to change the dynamic? But I also think, well, no, you go ahead.
I mean, I just think I'm asking myself, do we do that? Sunday school is great. Someone comes in and visits and stuff like that. Although sometimes there's no space. I know a few classes we have that. But I'm just thinking, am I overlooking that? Maybe I have a flaw in myself, and so I overlook it in someone else because if I call it out, they're going to be able to call out mine. Sometimes that's what prevents me from changing something I know I need to.
Yeah.
In order to do that, it's going to take some humility, right? It's going to take some changes. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking now, thinking of all the different things we do, but I don't try to, of course, do that. And I feel like me personally, but I also know that as someone who leads in this church, sometimes I got to call out things, not necessarily in a bad rebuke, like as in, you're horrible, but more like, hey, can't we do better?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen this? Couldn't we do better? What could we do to take a next step to?
Right. Yeah. I think that sometimes a struggle a lot, even not just for the church collectively, but just individually, is like the continuation of hospitality. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like I think that's kind of maybe what you're saying, maybe not, but it's like, yeah, we're welcoming people in that initial interaction. But you have to continue to walk with them and be with them, because they're looking for something. They came here looking for something. How do we continue in that? It's great to get them here, but how do we continue to walk with them and show them Jesus?
Our vision statement says find family.
Yeah.
And the question is, when people get here, do we include them like family? Like celebrating their victories. Sitting with them in their darker moments or struggles, or do we come alongside them and try to equip them in ways that they may not have been able to be? I'm just thinking, are there ways I can do better? I'm usually focused in on, okay, we're going to teach this, rather than maybe thinking, hey, maybe we just need to take a moment and spend time with whomever, whatever.
Yeah, just sensitive to the need.
Or maybe not meeting in group and go out to where the person is, instead of saying, oh, well, they aren't going to be here. But we say, you know what? This is important. Let's pause this. Let's go be with our whoever. I'm just thinking of things that we can do better, because I think the early church, one of the significant things, it was called out a lot, but it was also something they did well. Like when someone had a need, they all brought their things together, and then they gave that to the person who needed. Yeah. Even though they could have just hoarded it, or that's not probably the exact word, but kept it to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're a practical guy, what kind of like practical application steps would you like say for yourself and others can we practice to help us reflect God's character more when it comes to this kind of thing?
Well, I think it starts with being introspective. That's the first thing I think of is, hey, like I know that we could be more intentional. Maybe that's the right word. I'm trying to think of how to put this in words. I can kind of see it happening, but be more intentional at just saying, look, when I see people, do I see people, like just drive in your car. When you drive down and you see the guy holding up the sign, like, and I'm not saying that this is what you need to do, but like, needing food or whatever they say they need or something like that. My first reaction is, oh my goodness, those are guys again, rather than saying, you know what, even if they are doing it, and I don't know that saying they are, but even if they are doing it under false pretenses, God loves that person.
Absolutely.
Instead of seeing me better and them not so much. Right. Saying, how could I have compassion on someone in that situation? Or how could I don't know, and I'm just using that as an example, but like you go to a coffee shop or you go anywhere, You react every time you see someone.
Yeah.
Even if you don't say it, your mind's telling you, okay, I'm getting away from this person. But maybe that's not what God's wanting us to think that over. How does God see that person?
Right. Yeah.
Because the more we see
Yeah.
him, the more we're likely to, maybe that mother who's got the kids that are the worst behavior, maybe she's struggling through something. Maybe they don't act like this all the time. Maybe I'm just seeing that one snapshot of them right here now.
Sure.
And is there something I could do to maybe, I don't know, help? I know it's people's kids, so that's a whole other issue. But
don't tell me how to raise my children. Yeah.
But but having compassion, like, okay, so another one, we do this at the restaurant. I have seen people that I have eaten dinner with. I don't tend to do this because it goes against my whatever. It bothers me.
Yeah.
But I've seen them like just be so like commanding for the waiter or waitress. They could be having a struggle or whatever, and they didn't get something right, and I get frustrated. But if it keeps happening, I mean, I'm probably there with them. But the fact that maybe something is going on in their life, it could be they just got a huge diagnosis. It may not even be their diagnosis. It might be someone they love, and something's going on, or their car didn't get to work today because their car either in an accident or just didn't run now, but they made it here anyway. They're frustrated. We're seeing them at their worst. And just saying, yeah, could I be better? Could I show love even if I'm not getting the service I want? Could I think about what would be going on in their life? In other words, favoritism is, what did I get out of it?
Right.
I'm doing this because I get something out of it, but I'm saying,
because you don't know what moment you're meeting people in their life. You have no idea.
Even when we drive, and there are bad drivers out there, right?
Yeah. There's a couple.
Is it all because they're bad drivers, or could there be some things going on that if we had a little bit more compassion, maybe we wouldn't react the way we do?
Right.
And it's just trying to say, God, how can I see people differently?
Yeah. I like that. Like meeting, and that maybe when you were talking about the server thing, you can apply that to life every day. Like you don't know what relationship, what situation someone is coming out of. Just like a server coming from a table to your table, you don't know in that moment what's going on with them. And I think that there's a verse in here that was like, mercy triumphs over judgment.
Right.
Compassion, grace.
Think about who's saying this.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
God's word saying this.
So that's a
like
big
mercy
takeaway.
Also triumphs over sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, mercy is pretty important.
So
compassion, loving people wherever they are, wherever they come into your presence, and saying, I got to love them. I got to love them first, just because their identity should be in God, right? And then I give them that same love and identity that God gives them. And so to put them in a different category means I start treating them the way that category is, rather than what God's category is.
So meet people in the moment and love them like Jesus. That's what's important. So anything else you got to take away? I mean,
I probably have tons of stuff.
Tons?
Well, I can say this. I'll give you one closing truth. Jesus is not telling us to stop discerning right from wrong, like I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
He is confronting the sinful standards by which we decide who deserves honor, attention, neighbor love, and mercy. Neighbor love is what I really meant. But so he's wanting us to see that God has a different standard for us, and we can't just say, well, I had a bad moment. We really need to think about how are we, interacting with other people, and how are we seeing them. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this week, Cameron's back up this week, just as a spoiler alert. In case anybody didn't know, Cameron's going to be continuing through James this week. It's a good text. He and I talked about it a little bit the other day, and I was like, this is a real big like faith and works tension kind of text. So I'm excited to see how he presents that truth.
And there's a song by Rich Mullins, if you ever heard of it, "Faith Without Works." It's
like a screen door on a submarine.
Yeah, screen door on a submarine. It's like a song you can't sing.
Yeah.
It's about as useless as a screen door on a
submarine. All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Hope you take some steps this week to becoming more like Jesus, or just strengthening your relationship with him one step at a time. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or Apple or Spotify or wherever it is that this podcast shows up. And I remember to put it. I guess I got to do that too. See you Sunday morning, and have a great week. And thanks for being here.